Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. Got a viewer letter today about how wide a bush hog do I get, or brush hog. Bush hog's brand name, but a rotary cutter, rough cut rotary cutter. How wide do I get? And we're going to look at today 5 things to ask yourself if you're considering the same question, because every situation is different. In fact, I've got 2 situations that are different. We'll talk about that today. Let's get to the letter first. Letter comes from Wendell, and Wendell says, I'm starting the process of shopping for a tractor and bush hog. I'll be cutting 20 acres of mostly grass 2 to 3 times a year. Would I be better off with a utility tractor with an 8-foot cutter or a compact tractor with a 6-foot cutter? Well, Wendell, that's a great question, and it's one I get asked all the time. And I can't really tell you because every situation is different. But I can give you 5 things to ask yourself to help you make a good decision so you get the right thing the first time. Well, let's start out with where I'm at today. I'm on the place where I live. We have 20 acres here. But the first question you want to ask yourself is, how much am I really bush hogging? On this place, this is an overhead view of our place from Google Earth, and it shows that there's quite a bit of timber at the back of the place, and our yard and the house, and we've got a long 1/4-mile driveway that leads to the back of the property where our house is that we don't mow with a bush hog. So I'm actually, of the 20 acres, I calculated roughly only bush hogging 13 acres. So remember that number. Now here from Google Earth is other property that we own. A few years ago we bought some property down the road thinking we'd downsize there someday, and there's 33 acres there. And as you notice, it's completely different the way it's laid out. It's got a big open area in the middle where you could make really good time with a bush hog. And over there, there's more to bush hog, but it's a lot easier to bush hog because of the way it's configured. So I would calculate over there, there's a little more than double the area to bush hog that I've got here where I live, or about 27 acres. So here at the home place, I've got 13 acres that I bush hog. Down there, I've got 27 acres. So the first thing you want to ask yourself when you're shopping for a brush hog is, how much am I actually cutting? Now, the number 2 thing you need to ask yourself when you're shopping for a brush hog is, what am I cutting? Am I cutting mostly grass, which is what Wendell said he's doing? Or am I cutting a lot of woody material? Is it a rougher area where maybe it's been bulldozed and I've got sprouts growing up? Where I live right here at my home place, I've got some grass, but I've got a lot of woody material, like locust trees and Bradford pear trees that I cut. And because I'm cutting thicker material, I have to go slower. Down at the other place, it's mostly grass. So you can move a lot faster on grass than you can when you're cutting down woody material. So the second thing you need to ask yourself is, what am I cutting? The third thing you need to ask yourself is, how often do you mow? And this is really important. Here where I am on my place I live, I bush hog once a year. And I do it after frost, after the leaves have fallen. And I do that for a reason. This field I'm in right now has some of the most beautiful native wildflowers in it, and I let them stand for the wildlife until frost. It doesn't look that great sometimes, and I've got one neighbor that just drives him crazy, but I don't care. We need habitat for the butterflies and the wildlife and the bees, and I provide it. And after the first frost, I bush hog it down. It looks a lot better afterwards, but it's a lot better for the wildlife. And you walk by it in the spring and summer, you can hear bees and bugs buzzing around. It is a very, very good, conducive place for wildlife habitat. So I bush hog mine once a year. Now, we heard Wendell say he's going to bush hog his 2 to 3 times a year, and that'll be important later when we're calculating how long it takes us to get the job done. The number 4 thing we want to ask ourselves is, what's our terrain look like? And here where I am, where I live, I've got a long hill that runs this way. This long straight area this way, but sloped this way. So I can get done a lot quicker if I mow on the side hill these long distances. But it's a little dangerous. And tractor overturn is a huge problem. If I would mow this fast, I'd say there's a good chance I'd turn the tractor over, but I creep along on the side hill. It's still faster to mow a long straight area like that slower than it is to go up and down the hills and be able to go faster. So you got to look at your terrain, and you also got to look at how rough is the terrain, because you got holes and dips in it. And this place was bulldozed at one time. It's got big holes in it. It's really rough, and you can't stay in the tractor seat very fast where I live here. Now, if you go down to my other place down the road, it's pretty smooth. It's been farmed, it's been a hayfield, and it's relatively smooth for the area that we're in. So you could mow it a lot faster. Now we've asked ourselves 4 things, and those are all going to determine how fast we can go with the tractor. We're going to tie those in with number 5, and that is, how much time do you have to get your bush hogging done? If you've got a job in town and you're working 40 plus hours a week and you got to get out to the field at dark after work, or you're going on weekends and you just want to get it done and get on with life, well, you got a different situation than if you love being in the tractor seat. It's kind of therapy for you, or you're retired and you got all the time in the world. So the 5th question you got to ask yourself is, how much time can I allocate to get this done, and how much will I like being out on that tractor seat? So now that we've kind of determined these 5 things, and they'll be different for you as they are for me, and they're even different for me where I'm standing than a mile down the road where I want to build a downsized house. So every situation is different. But Bush Hog Corporation has provided this chart, and they've had it for years, and they allowed me to use it, that shows the acres per hour you can cover based on the speed and the size of the cutter. So let me talk about my own situation here. Where I'm standing, the fastest I can go is 3 miles an hour. I mean, that is creeping along, but that's as fast as I can go with the terrain and with the kind of stuff I'm cutting. So with a 6-foot cutter, and remember I'm mowing 13 acres here, you see that a 6-foot cutter at 3 miles an hour will cover 1.8 acre an hour. If I had an 8-foot cutter, it would cover 2.4 acres an hour. So if you calculate that all together with 13 acres and a 6-foot cutter, you take 13 and divide it by 1.8, and you come up with 7.2 hours to get my bush hogging done where I stand. Now if I had an 8-foot cutter at 3 miles an hour with 13 acres, I would be able to cover 2.4 acres per hour, and I would be able to get done in 5.4 hours. That's a difference of 1.8 hours a year for me to get my brush hogging done with an 8-foot cutter versus a 6-foot cutter. Now, will I pay for a bigger tractor and an 8-foot cutter to get it done in that amount of time? No, not me. But now if I did it a bunch, it might be a different story. Now let's go down to my other property here and show you the difference. At that property, there's 27 acres. I could probably mow down there, I'm going to say conservatively, at 5 miles an hour. So you see, with a 6-foot cutter, I can cover 3 acres an hour. So 27 acres, that's pretty easy math. I could get done down there in 9 hours. Now if I had an 8-foot cutter at 5 miles an hour, I can get 4 acres per hour. I could be done with that 27 acres in 6 3/4 hours, or 6 hours and 45 minutes. That's a gain of 2 hours and 15 minutes that I don't have to be on the tractor seat at 5 miles an hour. So would I pay down there to save 2 hours and 15 minutes a year? Probably not, but if I did it 3 times a year like Wendell's talking, that whole picture looks a little different. I might think about it, because as old as I am and as much as I've been on tractor seats, I don't enjoy it like some people do anymore. I hate to admit that. 6 hours on the tractor seat extra every year, I might invest in something better. Now, let's say that Wendell lives in Texas, and he didn't say where he lived, but he lives in the flat part of Texas or in Illinois where the farmland's great and it's flat and it's smooth. He might be able to mow 7 or 8 miles an hour. And that changes the picture drastically. Maybe 9 miles an hour. I don't know that you could mow at 9 miles an hour. It seemed like it'd be flying. But if you had smooth enough ground, maybe you could. So this chart will show you how fast you can get done based on your ground speed and the width of cutter you've got. And it'll tell you how much time it's going to take you to get your place brush hogged. I'm going to put this on my website as a downloadable PDF file. And so if you want to go to my website and find it, you can. I'm also going to say, Wendell, I see some people that buy bush hogs or brush hogs, rotary cutters that have thicker blades and are kind of designed more to knock down woody plants than they are to make a clean cut, when they could be buying finish mowers. And a finish mower is like a lawnmower deck that's on your lawnmower that's pulled by the tractor on the 3-point. Now the advantages of a finish mower is you can get about a foot wider width with the same horsepower on your tractor. In other words, if you've got a 30-horse tractor, you can put a 5-foot bush hog on it. You could put a 6-foot finish mower on it. And because they ride on the ground, they take less horsepower, and they assume that you're going to mow more often, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But some people that really like that park-like cut are disappointed in a brush hog's cut. They might have considered a finish mower, but the problem is, with a finish mower, you've got to keep that grass knocked down. You can't let it get up knee high. It's just like your lawnmower. You got to mow your yard often. Now, I've got a cousin where we did some filming a few years ago, and Rhino Corporation, that also makes rotary cutters, brought in a bunch of equipment for us to try out in exchange for the publicity. And we tried out a finish mower and a rough cut cutter, and he ended up buying both of them. They offered him a discount to keep him on his place there. Well, he tried keeping it knocked down with a finish mower for several years, and now that finish mower is for sale. So if you're looking for a good used finish mower and you live in southwest Missouri, shoot me an email and I'll give you my cousin's number and you can talk to him. It's barely been used. He tried it one season, keeping his grass knocked down, and he just couldn't keep ahead of it. He's got a job in town and he didn't like being on the tractor that much. So he mows it fewer times a year with a rough cut rotary brush hog, and he's happy with that. So Wendell, I hope that helps you pick out the right cutter. A lot to discuss there, and everybody's situation is different, so I can't tell you what will work for you, but hopefully this video will help you go in the right direction. Now, if you want to go on my website and get that downloadable PDF with the acres per hour, go here. And here's a video where I kind of talk about how big a tractor to get in order to pull a brush hog. And here's another video that talks about how heavy a brush hog to get. Thanks for watching.